Okay, so good evening and welcome everybody. So I am Councillor Sayaraza, the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It's now 7 p.m. on Monday the 26th of January and I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the committee. I'm joined by my fellow scrutineers, by cabinet members and officers of the council and by colleagues from the National Health Service. I would like to extend a warm welcome to members of the public, whether present with us in Hounslow House or watching the Committee on Hounslow's Council YouTube channel. Before we begin tonight's business proper, I'd also like to welcome Councillor Hira Dillon to the committee. It is good to have you with us, Councillor Dillon, and I look forward to your contributions for the remainder of this municipal year. Now to business. Our agenda today sees us look at two substantial topics. Given we have guests from NHS with us, I'm going to suggest we switch our substantive items around and begin by looking at the NHS and local health system changes as our first substantive item. We can then move on to consider the 26-27 budget proposals without keeping our health partners in the committee for longer than necessary. Are members content with that approach? Thank you, members. In addition, we have several shorter items on the agenda. They are updates from chairs of this year's scrutiny panels, a review of council's forward plan, a chance to review and revise the committee's own work programme, and any urgent business, should there be any. Having walked through the content of today's committee, I'll now take a few moments to set out the mechanics of the meeting. As chair, I will run the meeting and invite people to speak, I hope by combining questions and observations to allow for a fluid discussion. I shall invite our guests to introduce their reports. I will then invite members of the committee to ask questions of our guest. I or Councillor Mosley, as my vice chair, shall then speak last and then briefly to sum up the discussion and advise of any issues on common ground to note. Every member of the committee who wishes to speak will have the opportunity to do so, so please be mindful of your fellow committee members and our guests, and to ensure your contributions are pertinent and help us frame meaningful recommendation. Having set out the way in which I will chair the meeting, shall we begin? Shall we begin? For the benefit of our guests and those who may be watching us online this evening, would my fellow committee members like to introduce themselves?
I'm Councillor Mosley from Brentford East.
Councillor Marina Sharma, Brentford East.
Councillor Emma Yates, Brentford West.
Councillor Hira Dillon from Cranford Ward.
Councillor Jack Emsley from Chiswick Homefields.
Councillor Mohammed Hounslow West.
Councillor Adesh Parmahan, Bedford Ward.
Councillor Emma Sidhu from Heston West.
Wonderful, thank you, committee members. Today, so we're going to move into agenda item number 1. So these are apologies for absence and declaration of interest and other communications from members. I have received apology from Councillor Mitchell. Are there any other apologies that committee members are unaware of? Yes, Councillor.
Apologies for lateness for Councillor Sue Sampson.
Thank you so much for that. Any others? Nope. Okay, cool. Any declaration of interest or any other communications from members? Councillor Elmsley.
Yes, I've received communications about agenda item 3.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so we sorry. Yep. Councillor Sharma.
Thank you, Chair. I've received an email very late in the day this evening, before meeting started, from the Chair of Hounslow Unison. With that in mind, I will not be able to address these questions because I'm not sure what other members may have received them emails, but I will address this to the Cabinet members so they can answer a bit later.
Thank you. Any other communications from members? No. Okay. We move on to then agenda item number 2. So we have before us the minutes of our 27th of November meeting. Does anyone have any issue of accuracy? If so, then please let me know. Otherwise, we agree the minutes now. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to agenda item number 3, which is, of course, the NHS local system change. Today, we are looking not only at the work of the Council, but also the work of our health partners. The paper before us sets out changes to administrative geographies and seemingly dry topics, one which, in fact, has the potential to have significant real-world implications. We are joined today by David Williams, NHS Programme Director for Integrated Care, who will speak to the papers we have before us. Martin Waddington is also with us. Thank you. We would ordinarily expect Councillor Lily Bath, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, Public Health and Health Integration, to also join us, not to introduce what is a paper from NHS partners, but rather because health integration is part of her portfolio. Although Councillor Bath has given her apologies, I will ensure we share with her the minutes of our discussion with David. In 2022, integrated care boards were set up to replace the clinical commissioning group that were elements of 2012 reforms. These integrated care boards, ICBs, would focus on strengthening collaboration across different parts of the health system. This was welcome recognition that improved partnership working would also improve care. Last year, integrated care boards were told to reduce their costs by 50%. As a result, many have considered merging. Members of OSC will be aware that the proposed local system change will see the creation of a larger integrated care board for West and North London. It will serve a population of some 4.5 million. From my research, the largest ICB in England, by way of comparison, the current integrated board serves 2.1 million residents, and the population of Hounslow is a little over 300,000. The committee has been keen to engage with this issue for some time. It's featured in our work programs in the summer. We have initially hoped to consider this issue back in September. With postponements, this item because given changes among senior NHS ICB personnel, we wanted to be able to speak to NHS partners who would be part of the change they were explaining. That then is the background. Over to you, David. You do have 5 minutes. Please do introduce your report. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor, and thank you for the invite to the meeting. As said, my name is David Williams. I'm Director of Integrated Care for the North West London ICB. You have the paper in front of you, which explains the changes that are taking place within the NHS over the next few months, linked to changes across the country to integrated care boards. So you will know that integrated care boards are requested to make 50% management cost savings as we go into next year. And as part of what's happening to the local system, the North West London ICB will be merging with North Central ICB to create one of the largest ICBs in the country, as you mentioned, Chair. And this will cover a population of 4.5 million people, 13 boroughs and 50 neighbourhoods. So this is a substantial change in the administration of the NHS in the local area, and it revolves around some changes in responsibilities too for the NHS and for local partners. So I'll just go through some of those changes and then open up to questions, Chair, if that's okay. So the important thing here is the ICB will retain its core responsibility to commission services on behalf of patients and communities to get the best possible outcome for patients and to drive value for money for your local NHS. That is the prime responsibility of the ICB, and it will retain those responsibilities. The budget for the new ICB is around £12 billion, so it's a substantial amount of NHS national resource, which we'll be commissioning for our population here across North West and North London. As you know, a lot of the responsibilities of the ICB at the moment have been around operational management and some elements of delivery as well. Now, within the new ICB changes, those responsibilities will be for provider partners and for the NHS locally to deliver. with the ICB taking the commissioning responsibility, very similar to how council responsibilities work in terms of commissioning care for your residents. So a really important strategic change within this change, certainly in West and North London, is the development of neighbourhoods. And I'm sure the committee is aware of this as both a really important national and local development to provide more capacity and capability within communities to keep people well and safe at home. And the new ICB has indicated a strategic responsibility to shift resources to neighbourhoods and places to encourage better care for patients. And so as we go into next year, we are looking at 1% of resource to shift from the hospital sector, which, as the committee knows, has grown into the community. So that's a big strategic drive for us as an ICB. We will clearly still need to make those connections with local people to understand local needs, because we know that individual communities have their own specific needs, which the ICB absolutely will need to respond to. But the importance of the place-based partnerships, which I know are really strong in Hounslow, will need to remain, of course, in terms of delivering that local service for your community here. And I know Martin will touch on some of the Hounslow specific issues if the committee want to ask questions around that. So where are we now in these changes? So we've just finalized a staff consultation process, which finalized yesterday around the changes to reduce the staff numbers for the ICB. That is now being considered with a final staff structure on the 16th of February, moving towards the changes and interviews and new appointments for the teams as we go into next year. What is really important to say here is the statutory responsibilities of the ICB will remain, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we have the support to deliver those statutory responsibilities on behalf of the NHS, on behalf of communities. So you will see that in the pack as well. I'd just like to mention that a last point really is that the NHS is responsible for making sure we deliver the best outcome for your patients and your communities, and that is the core responsibility and will remain for the Integrated Care Board going forward. And we look forward, of course, to working with you all in the future to make sure that we improve services for your residents as we go forward. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, David, for that report. So we're just going to move on to questioning. So if I could just ask committee members, just for clarification of what we just listened to David's report, to ask those questions. Actually, the first one comes from me, to be fair. How will residents benefit or disbenefit from this change?
Well, the benefit for residents is there's a value for money benefit in terms of reducing management administration, and as you know, nationally, and putting those resources into local services. I would say the strategic benefit is for us to step back and really focus and hone down on our commissioning responsibilities to make sure we get the best value for money for the NHS pound that we have and drive better outcomes for commissioning. ICBs at the moment hold quite a lot of responsibilities to deliver care, and I think this core focus for us moving forward will allow us to make sure that the responsibilities in the NHS are clearly delineated. So the roles and responsibilities are becoming clearer through this national government policy, and that will allow us to be responsible for making sure we get the best outcomes through our commissioning resource.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Just a real quick follow-up on that. So just value for money, but also quality of care.
Indeed so. I mean, that's obviously our major importance for local patients, yeah.
Can I ask Councillor, thank you. Can I ask Councillor Sharma for the next question?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David. Can I just ask, this is a question that obviously our colleague, Councillor Mitchell, was unable to attend tonight, but he'd sent this to me, so he's asked me to ask this question. So how does the NHS think of neighbourhoods and disparities, and the local focus and neighbourhood, like what is happening in Feltham, Hamworth, Bedfont, and what are the implications for this?
Well, Martin might want to come in terms of the local factors here, but one of the, as I mentioned, one of the key drives for the new ICB would be to encourage and support capacity and capability within neighbourhoods to take care of local patients. We know that over the past few years there has been for lots of reasons a shift in resource to the hospital sector. With an increase in acute admissions, an increase in patients falling into crisis. And you will know as councillors through your local residents that if we can provide more support for them to help them in their everyday lives, we can prevent patients falling into crisis. And that requires a really strong partnership between local government and the NHS to drive those changes. So what I would say is the neighbourhood agenda, both nationally and locally, is probably the core strategic drive that we're going to have over the next couple of years. Clearly, as councillors, you need to see those changes on the ground with your residents and your patients, over the next few months and years. But it's a strong strategic drive from the new ICB.
Councillor Mayor.
Thanks, Chair. Just on the aspect of the ICB being expected to deliver or reduced, or let's say reduced cost of 50% from its initial costs, what challenges, let's say, do you expect to see while being able to deliver at 50% reduced cost, as well as the 4.5 million or so people that you expect to continue to serve? I mean, the question would more be kind of directed towards challenges that you foresee that could potentially kind of deter you from that kind of goal.
Yeah. So I'm not going to pretend that this isn't a challenge. 50% reduction in management costs is a big challenge for the local NHS. I would say, though, just to give you a sense of scale, there are around 120,000 NHS people working in the NHS in West and North London, and the ICB is about 1,000 staff. So that gives you a sense of the scale. But clearly, if we're reducing our management costs, we need to reduce and be really focused on the things that we can do and need to do well, and the things that we are asking partners to do on our behalf, as it were, to make sure partnerships in the local NHS work well. So it is a challenge because of the scale of the reduction. It is government policy, and we are public servants, and our responsibility is to implement government policy. And so we are doing that to the best of our ability. And we clearly, as people who work in the local NHS, we need to make sure that we are, with integrity and values, covering the things that we are responsible for local residents statutorily, and that's what we will do.
Thank you. It sort of comes in quite nicely to another question. So this is more sort of locally now. So with the change of ICB, has there been some work to understand the impacts in Hounslow?
Thank you, Chair. Just to introduce myself, so I'm Martin Waddington. I'm the Borough Director for the North West London ICB, but I'm also the Director of Commissioning for the Council. So there has, as David's already pointed out, this is a change on the administrative team within Hounslow. So the main consultation has been how will we fit into the new structure and the impact for those staff against the structure. In those changes, as David has already said, there are some areas that we will stop doing as a strategic commissioner, and we need to start looking to providers to how they will pick those tasks up. So with my local hat on, I've been working with Mandy Skinner, the Chief Executive of the Council, and Maria O'Brien, the Chief Executive of West London Trust, to start having those discussions of what will need to stay in Hounslow and stay in the provider collaborative, and what will transfer to the to the ICB. The consultation closed last week, did it, David? Yeah. So the consultation has just closed. We're now going to find out what the new structure will look like, and we'll then understand better the impact that will have on Hounslow.
And would that be sort of coming forward to OC at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll welcome that as one of our sort of recommendations going forward. Councillor Sharma, do you want to ask the next question? And then I'll pass to Councillor Mosley. He's got a couple of questions as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. What are the people and staffing impacts as a result of the merging of the two ICBs? And will these changes have direct impact on the borough's residents?
So, as I said, there are clearly staffing implications for reducing the number of staff within the ICB, and we are going through a consultation process. There will be redundancies linked to that, and that's implications for the administrative staff within the ICB. What we would hope is that as we move forward with the new organisation, we will still cover our responsibilities to, as I've said, to make sure that we are delivering on behalf of patients and communities, and that's the NHS responsibilities in terms of waiting times for patients, in terms of A&E waits, mental health services, GP access, all the things that local people are concerned about and want to see from their local NHS. We will have a responsibility to deliver.
Also, there's little clarity at the moment with regards to who was going to be in charge of the merger with the North West London. Do we know who's going to be in charge of the new ICB? Is that been announced?
So the board will be appointed. The new board will be appointed from April, and the exec team has already been appointed. You may know that there is a new interim chief exec coming in place, not named yet, but there will be a permanent appointment to a chief exec position. So the non-exec directors will be appointed, and we will have a governance structure up and running for the beginning of the new organisation in April.
Two from me. Just firstly, that to underscore that neighbourhood health is a agenda that we fully support in Hounslow. After the restructure, we're curious to find out what posts in the new structure will take forward the work in Hounslow and how will they build on the previous successes. And just ask a second one while I'm here. That my understanding is the help improvement funding has funded a post in the borough-based partnership, or the borough-based partnership analyst, which will be no longer included in the new restructure. So just curious to find out about the consultation that took place and potentially what impact that might have going forward.
Okay, so just in terms of that neighbourhood structure, we did go through a process last year to highlight an organisation that was willing to take on that coordination role for place, to provide the glue for partners to work together on behalf of patients and residents. And the council were involved in that process, West London Mental Health Trust has signed up to be that integrator. So they will have a responsibility to help knit together, if you like, the partnerships that are required to deliver local care through neighbourhoods. But it is a partnership. Local GPs will be involved as well as council colleagues as well. So it's in a way, it's a way of saying, the ICB is moving towards commissioning neighbourhoods. The delivery of neighbourhoods will be through those partners within the local place here. In terms of individual specific posts, I can't give you a response today, but in the new structure, there will be business intelligence and analytical support to provide that support that's required. Now, whether that's at place or whether that's at central level, those are the things that we just need to tease out in terms of the support that's required. What I would say is, in order for public health departments and for local services to enable to highlight patients' needs and deliver services that meet those needs, analytical support is absolutely vital to do that, Councillor. So I would say that support needs to be provided. Whether it's from the new integrator or whether it's from the ICB, I think we still need to work through those details.
Councillor Moore, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Just on the, I know you said there'd be redundancies, and then you topped it up by saying there'll be additional kind of analytical support that you'll require. So now, just putting that all into context, has there been any consideration in terms of the use of AI and just with the whole ICB and the whole overall NHS, the organization as a whole, and how that could kind of make things more efficient and the whole processes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a requirement on us to continue to look at ways in which we can improve services through AI and provide value. Just as a point in question, there is a national process now with something called the Federated Data Platform, which is providing a national template for sharing information across the NHS, which will allow us to provide better value because it's a national system rather than each local hospital or each local organization developing their own systems and their own analytical capacity. So there are ways in which nationally the NHS is looking to say, well, look, if we centralize this resource, if we centralize this support, we can provide value for the NHS pound.
Thank you for that, David. If there's no sort of questions, I want to sort of just go into any sort of discussion mode with committee members about the reports and the questions and the answers we have just heard, because this is a deep topic. There's a lot of consultation work here. There's still a lot of sort of results that need to come back. So from members, is there anything else that we need to discuss here with this? I think one of my points was really, I guess, and I think this has come up quite a few times, is if we look at the management side of things, they seem to be short tenured. So they don't seem to be long tenured, you know, maybe 9 months or a year or maybe 2 years. Is there an appetite here to maybe extend and have stability in the upper management to maybe a 2 or 5 year contract?
Well, Councillor, I would hope that this becomes a stable position in the NHS. Colleagues will know that the NHS likes a structural change. I would hope that this change lasts for a few years to enable that stability and consistency in leadership that that is necessary.
And would you welcome that as well?
Would I welcome that?
So,
well,
so this is
I
both the
welcome
ICB as well as local. I'll put that question to Martin as well.
Yeah, no, I would definitely welcome it. Yeah, I think stability, as David says, is absolutely what we'd like. So hopefully this will be the last restructure for some time and we can carry on delivering great care to the residents of Hounslow.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Councillor Yates, yes.
Hiya. I've just got a question on the neighbourhoods. So obviously you've got the 13 boroughs, which are then divided into 50 neighbourhoods. How has that been decided, or has it yet been decided? So is it parts of each constituency? How has that been arranged?
So Councillor, in Hounslow, we're not changing the foundations we've already built. So we have 5 primary care networks in Hounslow already. They are, I've got them in front of me, so I don't forget, they're Brentworth, so Brentford and Isleworth, Chiswick, Feldham and Brentford, Great West Road and Hounslow Health. So those are structures that are already in place. Our GPs are working within those structures. The voluntary community sector and social care are engaged with them. So the whole point of neighbourhood health is building on those structures. So as David said, if it all goes well, it'll mean more investment into frontline care, a strategic commissioner providing clear guidance and less management overhead. So 6 months, 12 months down the line, we're very hopeful that this will build on the good foundations in Hounslow already.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Any other sort of discussionary points? If not, councillors, I'll move to a couple of recommendations that we've got through this. So firstly, yes, we welcome the efforts to act locally to avoid crisis. I think that's really important. But recommend thinking about the local value and work with those who know the locals the best. Yeah. And new ICB returns to overview scrutiny to show the impact of boroughs residents and likely extend an invitation to our local interrogators as well. So yeah, we do sort of want to come back and see how this is all being panned out, hopefully positively. That's the most important thing. Do I have a second there for the recommendations? Yep, thank you. And just a vote, really. Are we happy with those recommendations? Yep, thank you so much. Okay, brilliant. So that is good. I think there's so much work there that needs to sort of come back to us. So thank you, David, for your time this evening. I'm sure you'll have recognised the committee's desire to ensure the changes to integrated care boards do not adversely affect the local people and local sort of provisioning. Given the importance of NHS and quality care to Hounslow residents and our desire to ensure the borough is not disadvantaged by change, I am minded to suggest that committee keeps this topic under review, whilst I would not presume to design next year's OSC's work programme. I will suggest that the impact of April's changes is something the committee might choose to look at next municipal year for the OSC. Financial pressures are not unique to ICB, and you are, of course, welcome to stay with us if you wish to look at the council's 26-27 budget. Other than that, of course, thank you very much. You're more than welcome to leave. Well, thank you, David. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. So we now move on to the second of our substantial items. So this is the One Hounslow Financial Strategy 26-27 budget proposals. We now move to the second of our substantive item of the evening, the One Hounslow Financial Strategy 26-27 budget proposals. This is the council's medium-term financial strategy, the development of which is key component of ensuring sound financial management and delivering against council commitments. When we last met as a committee, we considered One Hounslow Financial Strategy was set out the council's medium-term thinking to 28-29. Since then, we've had a chance to digest a national budget, the implication of the Fair Fund Review, and a local government financial settlement. Given what we have often heard from Councillor Rajwa about the uncertainty caused by single-year settlements from central government, committee members will, I'm sure, welcome a 3-year budget settlement. Similarly, an additional 60 million across 3 years from the Fair Funding Review seems to go some way to address the gap between need and government grant that Hounslow has historically experienced. However, as our agenda papers show, there is still a need for savings to ensure the council can deliver a balanced budget without making use of its reserves. Those saving proposals totaling some 26 million are our primary focus this evening. Members will see the Appendix 2 for this item set out savings across 11 group themes and specific details of more than 50 discrete proposals. Yeah, forgive me. Cabinet will next meet, discuss the budget in February before it's taken to Borough Council in March. So this is an opportunity for OSC to play a role in pre-decision scrutiny. We are asked to note the parameters of developing a sustainable financial position for the council over the medium term. Note the draft budget proposal for 26-27 and provide comments and feedbacks on the budget proposal. I would like to welcome Councillor Rajwat, leader of the council, and Cabinet Member for Strategy, Resource and External Affairs, and his Cabinet. Thank you all very much. I would like to welcome Jake Backus, Hounslow's Executive Director of Finance and Resources. Thank you all for coming this evening and your time. Councillor Rajwa, would you like to introduce your report, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. As you do every time, you've introduced the report for me. So good to be here. Thank you for having us, and thank you to the committee for having us. As you quite rightly identified, the budget is an important moment in the life of the council, and so pleasure to have Cabinet here alongside executive directors to talk through some of the savings proposals. As you very kindly pointed out, we were last here in October presenting the One Hounslow financial update, which pointed to some of the issues both locally but also across the country that weren't unique to local government, that we had to try and challenge ourselves to address over the period between then and the February budget, or the March budget as it is this year. And a lot of work has gone in, and actually, members here will have heard me say previously, our budget setting process starts almost the day after we set the previous budget. So, it started the day after we set it in February. So there's been a lot of work going on in the background. You will note that the gap that we were looking to fill for this budget year was 44.2 million. And as the chair pointed out, the proposals before you amount to about 26.1 million, just under 26.1 million pounds. And I'll talk about those in just a second. Quite rightly, for the first time, we are enjoying a 3-year settlement, which is very, very welcome, alongside the results of Fair Funding 2.0, I think it's called. Not quite sure what happened with 1.0, but certainly 2.0 is very welcome. And it's welcome because, from my perspective, it really rights a lot of the historic wrongs of previous settlements, not only in the fact that it was a single-year settlement that didn't give us the space to plan long-term, but also because it addresses things like deprivation. And so the arguments that we've always had with governments of any colour is around the deprivation that exists within the borough, and therefore the cost of providing services, the true costs of providing services, alongside demand only going in one direction. We're blessed with an aging population, but that within itself creates challenge we have to deal with. All of that also not losing sight of the corporate plan, being ambitious for Hounslow, really thinking about what the future of Hounslow can and should look like, and being ambitious for our residents, for our businesses, and for our voluntary and community sector. So, what I wouldn't want anyone to think in this room is that fair funding is just something that's rescued us. It has righted historic wrongs, and of course we welcome it. But as you quite rightly pointed out, Chair, we need to make sure as an organisation that we are constantly thinking about how we can be most efficient, how we can generate the most amount of income possible, and also protect the most vulnerable in our society as well. And I think we are, I would say this, we are striking that balance in this budget. It's a budget, and you'll note when I came to you last year, I talked about that budget being a budget for the future. Well, this is part of that future, and we are shaping that future as we go forward, providing the best chance for the next administration to carry on the good work that we have started. So there is a lot in there. We're absolutely focused on growth and growing Hounslow and making sure that the residents benefit most from Hounslow. And I think this gives us the best chance. I'm very happy to answer specific questions, and the Cabinet's here to answer specific questions around proposals, but also questions around the economic factors, which I will very conveniently hand over to Jake because he knows it better than I do. But certainly, I think this is a budget that really does think about what the future of our public services look like, ensures that we're as efficient as possible, and we're generating as much as we can internally, so that our offer to residents is as robust as possible going into the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rajat. Okay, so we're gonna kick off with points of clarification with questioning. Of course, we can discuss this afterwards. So we'll just go into the questions first. Now, we've broken up the questions in two elements. So one is sort of general questions about the budget, and then we've got a focus of saving questions, which is of course part of the report there. So firstly, just general the proposals. So does the 3-year settlement make the financial planning easier?
Yeah, absolutely, it does, because it gives us a set idea of what we're going to get year on year, and it allows decisions in year. Now, what I didn't mention actually in my introduction, that part of the gap that we see is some structural items, the 10 million in year overspend. We're obviously that has its own piece of work as well around mitigating that, and we're fairly confident that about 5 million will be mitigated. 5 million goes into the budget gap, and it's incumbent on us, all of us as a cabinet, to make sure that we're working on that 5 million as well. But just having that knowledge of what we're going to get, and plus the additional money from fair funding over the years, really gives us that space. And I would say this budget is probably quite a large hump that we're going to overcome. I won't say famous last words. It's probably a little bit easier in future years, but that gives us more space to think about innovation and think about what else we can offer for our residents.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Helmsley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is potentially one more for Jake, because I know that he addressed it at the Chiswick Area Forum as well, which I'm very grateful for both of you for coming to. Just about council tax assumptions, we talked about core spending increases and what that might look like. Jake, could you just confirm what the council tax assumption was when you were calculating how much money we'll have to spend next year?
Hello, Jake Backus, Executive Director of Finance and Resources. Yes, I thought you all know me by now. Thank you for that question. The answer is actually you'll see in the appendix A, I think it is, which is the July paper that came to scrutiny back in November. Within the 54.2, or what is 44.2 plus 10% replenishment of reserves, was a 4.99% assumption of uplift to the council tax. Table 2 also grosses that out and says what the budget gap was without it. So it gave the two options ultimately, but everything was predicated on and assumed my assumption that council tax would increase, which obviously is not a decision yet made until the 3rd of March.
It's not for us, is it? And it's the same for the next 2 years as well in that table, isn't it?
For years. So what I am currently doing as well, and this is the cabinet paper that will go, and then the council paper, is refreshing all of the assumptions, certainly on the back of fair funding. For years 2 and 3, I'm going to be much clearer around those assumptions around council tax. So when decisions are made, I won't assume anything until the decisions are made by members in future.
Okay.
So years 2 and 3 will be 0.
That makes sense. And then just on that sort of line of thought then, do you have a sort of preliminary updated projected budget gap for 27, 28 and 28, 29 based on...
I will on the 10th of February.
On the 10th of February.
And it's a lot lower than the budget gap presented in November and the budget gap presented tonight.
Okay.
So fair funding has gone some way to alleviating and putting more financial resilience into the council. But obviously it's really clear from the government policy that additional funding follows deprivation and all the metrics. So the work that needs to happen now is how we as an authority, officers and members alike, really tackle those outcomes that government expects us to tackle with that extra funding.
Yeah. So it's likely there is still a gap there.
There will be a gap, but the gap will be a lot smaller, but we're still going through the finer details on that.
And if I may add, Chair, just to help, that point around demand only going one way, and inflation being a little bit sticky, that will also have to be factored into those calculations as well.
Thank you. Sounds positive. That's always good. Positive. Councillor Yates, please. Your question.
With some questions on behalf of Councillor Mitchell. The positive outcome of the fair funding review will see more money for Hounslow. However, does this mean we'll now be able to offset budget pressures rather than do new?
So I think, as I said at the introduction, this was always going to be a very difficult budget round. It was probably the highest gap, and as Jake's just alluded to, it does get a little bit easier in future years, depending on where demand and inflation goes. So I'm very hopeful, actually, in future years that there is an element of do new in this. And in terms of budget gaps, I think what we need to demonstrate to you and to the public is through this process that we're looking at everything, turning every stone over within the organisation, making sure we're as efficient as possible. And there'll always be stuff that will come up as part of that, making sure we're maximising income wherever possible to try and close those budget gaps to give us that space to be able to do new.
Thank you. Councillor Mousey, please.
Thank you. Just two for now. Just zooming out for a moment, and granted this is before my time as a councillor, but my understanding is a few budget setting processes before, this was the year that we were projected to be in a more precarious position in terms of our reserves under the do nothing scenario. So do nothing, and this is the year that things would be in more difficult position. So given that we're not in that position, we're not in a situation where the reserves are below the statutory level, what were the sort of really big changes that were made that avoided that scenario? And then one arguably techie question was just a question around the assumptions for inflation moving forward. At what point do you include the forecast? Because I presume from the November forecast in the OBR, inflation was a little bit less. I was wondering whether that had been included and the documents hadn't yet been included.
Thank you. So very simply, we use the Bank of England's projection for inflation, which whatever we use is going to be wrong because life happens in between us putting those numbers down and then the manifestation of those costs. What you'll see over the last year, actually, when we set the budget for 25-26, inflation was around about 2.6%. That was roughly the time when it went through council, etc. Inflation's actually gone up since then. It's gone up by a percentage point, which is 1% is about 4 million. So that's £4 million worth of cost. That £4 million is manifesting in some of that structural deficit, the £5 million that we need to roll into next year. But we do use Bank of England at the moment. But anyone with a crystal ball absolutely would welcome that. But I think prudence and using Bank of England, who actually set the interest rates, feels to me the right approach.
So on the reserves, just zooming out a little bit further, I think context is really important here. I think this council and the residents here have gone through really stringent austerity, which did have an effect on cutting services, COVID, and then the cost of living crisis, where some of those issues around inflation and costs really did manifest themselves. And I think, whilst some might argue that you should have spent reserves at that point, I'm glad we built up reserves and kept them, because that was the rainy day. This was the rainy day that we really needed to address. That having been said, rainy days come to an end, and we need to look at that. And I think we've been quite honest and transparent about our reserves position and what it's actually helped us continue doing over that period. What you'll see in the budget papers is a very conscious decision to rebuild reserves from next year onwards. So I think it profiles to about £15 million each year, and then subsequent years we'll have to look at that again, and that will just help us build up the resilience when the pressure isn't as high, so that we can build up that rainy day chest again for any future crisis that might arise. Not being critical of other authorities, we're all colleagues in local government, but a lot of authorities that are struggling now didn't make those decisions, and so are feeling that now. So I'm not complacent, but I'm quite grateful that we had it when we did.
Thank you. Councillor Sharma.
I've got a few questions. I can do one at a time or all together. One at a time, okay. So how is delivery being monitored through the year, and how will members be alerted early to any issues?
So it's a really good point, Councillor Sharma. So you'll know through the corporate plan we have the delivery plan, which is monitored, and then we take regular performance reporting to cabinet as well, and that's discussed in public. Behind the scenes, each cabinet members meet with their executive directors on a monthly basis, where finance and performance are a key part of that agenda at their request, so they can keep an eye on it. And then I meet with them sort of on a quarterly basis for performance reviews as well, where we go through both the finance lines, but also performance and delivery on both corporate plan items, but also savings items as well, so we can keep a real focus on them. And in the case where something perhaps isn't delivering and the narrative isn't quite right, it's a case of, well, what are we doing as a team to make sure they're back on track? And if there is a problem with delivery, what else can we do that achieves the same outcome?
Thank you. And also, to what extent are these proposals a response to structural underfunding from previous governments rather than local policy choices?
That's an interesting question. The politician in me says all of it. No. I think it's well documented how our funding has been over the last couple of years, and that has had an impact. And we can't discount the macroeconomic conditions. Inflation being high, at one point it peaked at 11%. So if you imagine 1% adds 4 million, how much that was adding on to the issue. In terms of the sort of local context, I think I'm very proud, and I think we as a cabinet are very proud that we've protected public services that we know our residents access, need, and rely on. And so we've always tried to look internally at our organisation and look at income before we look outside at stopping or changing services. Sometimes that does happen. Some services aren't funded entirely by the council, and every public body, be it the NHS, police, have their own financial pressures, and so that is something that we have to respond to as well. But for us, it's about protecting public services wherever possible, and that's a guiding principle for this administration.
Following on from that, so what proportion of the overall savings gap is driven by demand pressures that are outside of the council's control? For example, adult social care and homelessness.
Thank you. Very simply, if you look at the Appendix A, Appendix 1, the July OHFS paper that came to November, you'll see we talk about the budget gap next year being 54, but actually increases to about 64 over the next 3 years. We've been, for adult social care, for 25-26, and for the next 3 years, we'll be putting in £8 million per annum. So that's 32 of the 64. It's just a neat 50% essentially answer to your question, just to make that point. Then on top of that, you've got children's social care, TA, and those demand-led pressures. So it is a significant amount. 50% is adults alone. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Sharma. I mean, just another question from me, I guess. Can you expand on the state of the HRA and its future prospects, please? Oh, bless you. Bless you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Do you want to start? Or?
Did you know? Okay. So, can you please expand on the state of the HRA and its future prospects?
Yes, of course. The HRA reserve balances are lower than the recommended level, equivalent to 15% of the rental turnover, leaving the HRA with very little resilience. With the impact of inflation and high interest rates, took us down the route that we have, and we've come back with £3 million worth of savings that will enable us to. We've looked very carefully, very deeply into temporary accommodation. That's slightly separate, but all of it, there's not been, like as the leader said, there's not been one stone left unturned for us to find these savings. But yeah, we're very confident that we, with what we've got proposed, will enable us to carry on delivering for the future. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Councillor. Okay, so we've got to move to a section now, which is the saving proposals. So these are questions based on the saving report. Councillor Yates, if I can ask you for your question, please, first.
Sorry, Chet. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, go on.
It'd be really helpful if you could identify which saving proposal it was, just so we can make sure we get to the right cabinet member.
Right. Okay. Let's see how this will go. Yeah, these are themed as savings, not broken down to portfolios, or we'll probably be here all night. But let's put the question in and see how it goes. Yeah. Okay. Go for it.
Thank you. Focusing on the 3.5 million savings area of procurement opportunities, what are the implications of the Send Transport savings proposal in practice? Are there people impacts?
Right, thank you very much. I think it is CES 13 because I've already got it in front of me in the report. Thank you, Emma, for your question. Operating model reform focuses on how basically school travel assistant can be delivered differently. So this proposal only considered the cost of transport provision, both directly delivered and contracted out, and it will not affect eligibility, which is determined through statute for children school age, or what children's basically receiving or receive only how transport is provided. Um, the direct model and the cost per mile and per journey. So currently provision, you might know that the provision is delivered through the council's own transport service and external contracted providers, including the taxis. As a part of the saving proposal, we are exploring how transport could be provided at a lower cost than the current arrangement. And the council, we will access options and identify more cost-effective transport model. However, there will be no reduction in service or change in eligibility. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Do you want to do the next one, or?
This is on behalf of Councillor Mitchell. The in-house provision proposal suggests almost 1 million in savings. It references a wider focus on asset-based approaches. What does an asset-based approach look like? Are there examples that our guests can point us towards to show how this asset-based approach can work?
Yeah, absolutely. This falls under my portfolio. I mean, I'd point to, I suppose, three things really in terms of assets more broadly. Thinking about Councillor Mitchell, your question on behalf of Councillor Mitchell, it's how we're using our assets right now. So, for example, Hounslow House is an asset, and we hire out stations and floor, areas of a floor. We might be, and there's a proposal in here to hire out a whole floor to a third party and someone coming in and using that. We're working on proposals at the moment. It's not firmed up, but that's an income target that will be looked at there. In terms of our services that we run from our assets, I can point to libraries in particular. So they're based in an asset, but they are a service that comes into that asset and uses it. And if we look at Meadowbank specifically, the rollout of the community hub and library model there, freeing up an asset near it for something else, is something that we can look at rolling out in the future at other assets, other libraries, and using those buildings in different ways. And the third element to that is in terms of place. So if we think about the future Feltham infrastructure framework that we brought to Cabinet back in December, that looks very squarely at a number of aspects there, but much on the assets that we hold. For example, Feltham Assembly Hall, and how that might be improved and enhanced in the future, along with the park area around it. So it looks at a model of the assets we have, using them in a different way, looks at the services that might be using them and how we can improve that into the services, and looks at that wider place model, be that in Feltham with using different assets in different ways for different services. Osterley is another example where there's a much smaller number of assets, but we're holding some have held some consultation work and engagement work with residents there at looking at the Bowls Club and the library there, how that might be used in the future. So those are different examples of how assets are going to be income generating, going to be used in a different way, how our services can use them much better, all focused on this idea of maximising the use of our assets across the borough.
Thank you. I'm going to jump to Councillor Elmsley, please. Your question now.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. I thought I was much further down the list than that, but I'll take it. Just on RCE04, which is page 16, which is I think it's a £500,000 cut to the Resident Support Communities and Equalities Department, which Councillor Garrawal, I think, is you. That cut falls on frontline services. Can you just give us some more details on which frontline services will be impacted?
Thank you. Well, the savings will be delivered through a number of routes, including vacant roles, efficiencies in contracts, and opportunities brought by teams working more closely together. Officers will be finalising the specific detail over the coming weeks. However, I'm confident that the proposal will strengthen our ability to pass on the power to the community, quicken our transformation journey that we have started as part of our radical overhaul, and improve how we work with, support, and empower our communities and voluntary organisations.
There's a little bit of public concern about the impact this might have on the domestic violence team. I just wondered if you could comment on that and rule out any cuts to that specific team.
Right, there are no cuts to that. That was funding which was given to us in 2023 from the Home Office. It was a 3-year funding which is coming to an end. However, we're already looking into how to integrate those services with other departments, right? So as a modern and agile council, we are required continually to review and deliver exceptional cost-effective services that meet the changes to our residents. And the current funding of the DA services was set some 3 years ago, of course, as I said, and given the rise in demand, we are planning to invest in DAV services in a very different way. Firstly, I want to reassure the residents that our essential work with the high-risk victims to ensure their safety remains. Our collaborative efforts with partners, including the police, will continue. This work continues to be supported by specialist Hounslow IDVA staff. Now, our daily and monthly multi-agency risk assessment conferences working to safeguard those who are at the highest risk. Secondly, whilst we access to support through a single one-stop will change, those changes mean access to DAV services will increase. All our 11 community hubs, including the newly launched Meadowbank and 3 family hubs, are fully operational. And all the staff there will be upskilled to enable them to provide additional initial advice to DA victims and sensitive support for them to access specialist services. Now, this means victims can simply and safely and anonymously access support close to where they live through the community hubs. And thirdly, the Families First Partnership Programme provides us with an opportunity to revisit our support services for those children exposed to harmful episodes of DA. A revised offer around DA early help and prevention work and long-term recovery support is currently being developed by Children's Social Care ahead of the transition in April 2026. So elements of this existing offers, including the Let's Talk group work program with children and mothers, will continue alongside closer work with schools and an increased group work offer for adolescents, focusing on breaking the cycle of abusive behavior and reducing the likelihood of young children entering unhealthy relationships such as adults. So staff across children's services will receive additional specialist training and continue to have access to existing DA specialists as this offer is embedded. Established referrals, pathways, and partnerships working will continue to ensure that high-risk victims with children will receive the right level of support. So everything is in hand.
Thanks for that. That was super comprehensive and much appreciated. So just to be clear, the current DVA team is being abolished and their role is being rolled into existing staff members?
Not all of them, no. It is only the ones that were funded by that, and they are being deployed over. We're not sort of like getting rid of all of them, but the DAV team is still there, the main team. And as I said, we're just finding a different way of keeping them.
When you say not all of them, do you know how many?
No, I don't.
No. Okay. That is fine. Thank you very much for that. And then I just want to move on to IRT 13, which is CCTV and changes to CCTV, which I think is you, Councillor Garewal. A fifth of these savings. Councillor Shivraj Garewal, that's it. Yeah. There are three. Yeah. I've forgotten where I was going with that now. Sorry, yes, a fifth of these savings come from IRT 13, which is a renewal and improvement of CCTV. Can you just outline where that additional revenue is coming from?
CCTV.
I think it's under your name.
Okay, as
No,
far
it's
as
not.
okay, I can give you some update. Okay.
Who's in that? Pritam.
It's under Shivraj's name in the document, but whoever, I don't mind. You want the question again? Okay. IRT 13, for one of you, says that a fifth of these proposed savings are coming from changes to the way that CCTV works in the borough. That's £5 million of additional revenue. I just wondered if you could elaborate on how this will generate an additional £5 million.
To be honest, I was not briefed from that, but yeah. So,
It is, yeah, it is.
yes, Councillor
I
Ansley.
promised I knew where I was going with that.
Councillor Ansley, what it is, we are going to be introducing 20 new cameras for enforcing moving of traffic contraventions on the highway, right? And which will generate an income of 5.2 million. And what is your question now?
So I guess the question is that 5.2 million from an increase in fines being handed out to people?
Not
Is it
fines.
from...
It won't be fine. What we are encouraging people is how to drive safely and to abide by the rules of traffic. You're not going to penalize them.
How does that, maybe I'm missing the point, how does that increase savings by £5.2 million by deploying 20 extra cameras?
Well, the thing is, if somebody is not abiding by the rules, he certainly will be fined. I know many people or residents will not like this, but they have to abide by the rules.
So is it £5.2 million from additional fines that you foresee happening?
No, you are trying to implement it as a fine. I'm not trying to say it's a fine. We are not imposing it. What we are doing is we are trying to make people drive safely and make the road safer for the residents. That's what it is.
And if I may just assist, so in answer to your question, there will be some additional fines. What we found is that behaviours on the road, when people know that there's a camera there, they're very safe on that one, but not on the next one. So predominant driver for this one is ensuring safe driving practices across the borough. In terms of the deployment of cameras, there will be a move of some cameras and we may not need some. So some of that will come from that. And I've just been reminded that some of it is a technical uplift in terms of some GLA money, which I'll ask Jake to elaborate on. It'll be a mixture of different things. The idea isn't to just make income from the use of fines, whilst there will be an element of that because people will get fined for bad behaviours on the road. But the primary driver for us anyway is about the safety on the road. Do you want to just take the GLA uplift?
Yeah. That's exactly what I said.
Simply, so obviously £5.2 million is the saving. About half of that is from the uplift to PCNs introduced by the GLA. So one type of PCN goes from 130 to 160. This was introduced in 25-26. And for sort of bus lane contraventions and other contraventions like yellow boxes, which this one relates to, has gone from 80 to 110. That's about half of the total saving. It's important that we build that in. We also build in a risk factor because obviously, that's the gross figure. Some people, if you pay within a certain time frame, 14 days, I think. Yeah. I should know that. I've had a few. Is you pay half of that.
So just to be totally clear, it's income from PCNs.
Income from PCNs.
Right.
Half of that figure
Is
in
the GLA
saving
and
is the
then-
GLA element.
Okay.
The other half is from cameras and improving the technology ultimately. So when people do contravene, you can actually pinpoint the individual from the photograph. At the moment, it's a bit grainy.
Brilliant. We got there. We got there. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Mosley, please, your question.
Yeah, this is about HMH02, which is regarding rebasing of budget contingency for local TA demand. Again, my understanding is that TA costs is something that cripples most London councils, and by comparison, we do fairly well. So just wanted to have an opportunity to talk about what it is that Hounslow does that makes our TA costs more manageable, where that's going into the future, if there are any changes that you envisage, and potentially what role Lambton plays in this discussion.
So if I may just very briefly start, so this is the contingency that we put aside, and Councillor Sampson will talk about a lot of the good work because there's a lot that's happened in this area. But because she's done so well and her team's done so well, this is the contingency that we put aside that we're then putting into a savings. So it doesn't have a material impact on the provision of temporary accommodation going forward. But I'll leave the rest to Councillor Sampson.
Yeah, we've consistently operated since 2024, keeping the cases under, well, they've all just automatically been under 500 due to all the prevent work that we carry out, the team carry out, which is, you know, is very good. Currently, all right, I'm just trying to remember the cases. Even up until Christmas, we were still under 500. As of today, we're 426 cases. So the figure there that we're offering is 1,600 was based on our budget is set on 750 cases because we've got 426. So we know that there's flexible, you know, the budget we can flex within that budget and offer that 1.6 as savings. So there's no concerns at all.
And then just potentially around Lambton, just wondering if Lambton plays a role in some of that success.
Yes, through the void works. Yeah, the speed of the void works, they're able to turn around and get families out of temporary accommodation. That frees up temporary accommodation. You know, so you know, it churns over quite quickly. But yes, but we don't use Lambton for temporary accommodation because we just don't.
So yeah.
Yeah, so just addendum to that is whilst we wouldn't use it for temporary accommodation, sometimes we can use it to nominate directly into a property and avoid temporary accommodation.
Yeah, yes.
And how do we fare with other councils in London?
We are the best in London.
Fabulous. That's what I want to hear. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you. So yeah, thank you for the. Do you want to do the other one? Yeah. Okay. Go for it.
Sticking to the theme of housing, just generally around the HRA proposals, how do we strike a balance between the financial sustainability within the HRA, the ambitions of returning the reserves to the recommended level, and protecting tenants and leaseholders?
There's a lot to that. A lot to that. Where do you start with that answer? Yeah, because there's a lot to it, and I'll be here all night.
So I mean, can we maybe have a look at what the plan is for the future of the account, the HRA account?
So what we're talking about in the budget savings there, based on the proposals in the HRA, is continuing some of our savings work. By continuing some of the savings work, what we can do is create more resilience in the HRA. But it also means there's great, not just in and of itself in how it sits now, but in the future, the borrowing that we can have against the things that we need to do, investing back in our estates, which directly positively impacts on tenants and residents at the moment and going forward, but also on our ability to build new as well, because it does both things. So, Councillor Sampson is in charge of the HRA, politically in charge of the HRA, and then tenants there. It feeds over into my part in terms of into my portfolio with the house building, and it's an important element that we talk about both. We've invested over £300 million in the last 4 years on our estates, and we can do that because the HRA is in a good place. What we want to do is keep that resilience, build it up, continue to invest, and to continue to build all the houses and more that we have been building over the last few years. We've had great success in building council homes. We've had great success in supporting lots of our residents into council homes, and the measures that we're putting in terms of the saving proposals and other things that we will be bringing forward into the budget mean that we can continue that resilience, continue to invest in our tenants, and continue to invest in new homes.
Can I just add to what Councillor Bruce said? It's exactly that, because we've had the volume of new builds coming across, we've been able to manage our housing a lot better than most. We've had, I think we've got another 191 properties due over. Again, that's new homes for our residents. And it's all of this that enables us to keep the HRA, the temporary accommodation spend. It's not just one area, it's got a knock-on effect right across the board. But no, but it's a lot of work has gone into it. But what we've done over recent years has helped us achieve where we are today.
Brilliant, thank you. Just following on to that, actually, it quite nicely ties into my question. New investments, where are we with that?
In terms of HRA new investments?
So compared to our budget, what sort of new investments we can do now? We've got the 3-year settlement.
Oh, well, that's crystal ball. You're asking for our manifesto, and I'm not going to give that with Councillor Elmsley in the room, am I? Might give him ideas. No, that's not right. No, so I think the point. Sorry, a lot of the work, just to complete that HRA question, in building up resilience allows us to think about what estate regeneration can look like going forward. In particular, things like Charlton Common Way, but also in terms of new developments, you would have noticed that through our work in Opportunity Hounslow, we signed a public partnership between ourselves and the GLA for the MOD and the Ministry of Defence for the MOD site in Feltham as part of the Future Feltham investment framework. So we acknowledge that we can't do all of it on our own. And actually being able to demonstrate to those that are looking to invest into the borough that we are a sound offering, that we are financially resilient, and we've got that ambition, really helps. The other area that is worth talking about, and I'm probably taking your thunder now, Councillor Bruce, is the Golden Mile. Reimagining what that looks like, and as part of that, the Mayor of London has recently announced a major investment in the West London Orbital, because we know that area will thrive with proper connectivity as well. And then, forgive me, Chair, I won't say it out loud now, but we are starting to think about what our manifesto looks like and what our offer to residents looks like, with one eye on May, and actually having the ability to think about innovation and doing things more is really valuable. Oh, God.
Yeah.
No, I think it comes back to a question that was asked earlier about doing new. There was a question about, is this about filling the gap that we have, or is it about doing new? And I think the point needs to be driven home is the fact that despite the difficulties financially across the country, but the financial difficulties that a number of we find ourselves in, we have continued to do new in the last 14 years. There's been lots of innovation that we've had. There's lots of things that have come in. We've continued to build council homes. We've invested in staff working within our schools, improving our schools from 70% good and outstanding against Ofsted to almost 100% at some point. And I could go on and on and on. So that doing the new, this settlement helps support that continued work. Doesn't mean we can do everything that we might want to do. It doesn't mean we can do everything we might want to do straight away, but it does mean we can plan more easily for the future and continue the work that we have been doing. And perhaps in some cases accelerate, perhaps in some cases look at things, bring things forward that we might have done in future years. But it gives us a sense of, I suppose, the art of the possible, and continuing that good work.
And if I may, Chair, this is turning into a bit of that was that. But actually, we are really serious on things like climate as well and the future of our borough. And without wanting to put her on the spot, I wonder if Councillor Dunn wants to talk a little bit about the heat network. It's something that is really exciting, something I'm really, really proud of, because we've achieved that through our convening power and our influencing power. So if you don't mind, I'd like to bring Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to come in on that, partly because I hardly have any savings and I'm worried I might not get to answer any questions. But in terms of investment, I mean, obviously the climate portfolio is really important for that, and it all represents a huge investment for the benefit of the residents of the borough. So while we are looking at climate in terms of reducing our carbon emissions and thinking about how to get to net zero, that's not what's first and foremost in our minds. That's the absolute wider benefits of this are about improving homes for residents, warmer homes, cheaper bills, better neighbourhoods. And the project that really encapsulates that is the Heat Network project, which is moving forward day by day. And I think there's going to be more announcement on that this week. But that represents a multi-million-pound investment in improvements to this borough for the residents of this borough. We also have our strategic energy partnership. Again, we're moving forward with that. And I suppose the point I wanted to make is it's not all about the funding that we receive from the government or the funding that comes through council tax. We're also good at leveraging funding from partners, the private sector as well, and making sure that we maximise additional income through grants and things in order to be able to really make those investments for the future.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. The other one was just coming back to leisure as well, and investments on that side as well.
Thank you very much. Yes, we're doing quite a lot to invest in our leisure centres. We've just brought forward, as of Cabinet the other week, the proposal to introduce paddle for the first time into our leisure centres. We are also, committed as well to the building of the new Brentford Fountain Leisure Centre. And we've that came to Cabinet last week as well, and we committed another 4 million towards that, and that's in response to the huge response that we've had from the public that asked for a better leisure centre, a leisure centre that will stand the test of time, and a lot of work has gone into that, a lot of work to come as well, but we're very committed to investing in our leisure services. Even though obviously we want over time Lambton Leisure to wash its own face. We will be reducing our subsidy towards Lambton Leisure, but we want to improve the facilities there so that it can begin to bring in more and more members as well. And also we have we've brought forward, and it's not a capital investment, we've brought forward very recently our new culture strategy, and that is a holistic look at how we can target investment across our cultural assets, not just in terms of what the council can do, but what we can do with our broader ecosystem of partners as well, to bring in investment that will stand the test of time, which will bring forward culture across the next decade.
Brilliant, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Is there any other question? Oh gosh, they're all going up now. So there's more questions. If I can take Councillor Sharma's first, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a couple. I'll be quick. What will the 50% reduction in our learning budget mean? So this is relating to staff. And how do we ensure that staff are trained effectively and are still supported in their training and development needs and requirements? It's to do with our staff learning.
Yeah, I think it's saving about 20k. So the corporate, yeah, absolutely, it's still important. So the corporate learning budget is held by our corporate HR team. We're moving increasingly in terms of that capacity and that spend into more of a learning pool, e-learning pool. So a lot of what we do corporately is through that. It doesn't take away the learning budgets that are held within services. So a lot of that is now, the training that we do online, as indeed I'm sure yourselves do. Yeah.
And also, Chair, this is for digital inclusion. So what steps are being taken to ensure digital inclusion for residents who may struggle with online services?
Yeah, so you'll know, Councillor Sharma, sorry, lots of work has gone on over the last four years on really getting the basics right on digital. And that includes digital inclusion. So we've been handing out laptops, and I know that's been happening outside of the council as well, and that's appreciated. But also drop-in sessions both here and in our community hubs across the borough. What that looks like going forward is a conversation that we're currently engaged in. We know we have to do more of it. We are moving more digitally. We've made lots of changes to the website to make the ability to carry out tasks digitally much easier, but we do acknowledge that there are still pockets within the borough where that digital exclusion does occur, and so it's taking that and making sure that we are absolutely locality based, and everything happens close to someone where they live as well. In terms of infrastructure as well, a lot of work's gone in by the digital team to talk with internet service providers to make sure that we are as connected as we can be. And we've certainly come a long way. I mean, Feltham used to be a bit of a black spot, in particular Bedfont, I think. Bedfont and that area used to be a bit of a black spot, and actually investment in there and getting the ISPs in to invest and Openreach to invest in those areas is really paying dividends as well. So the strategy involves the entire ecosystem of making sure that we're joining everything together.
Thank you. I'm just going to go to Councillor Sidhu first.
This is for Councillor Chowdhury. I see there's a proposal what includes a 6-bedroom residential children's home. What is the progress on this, and is it a realistic saving?
Thank you very much, Councillor Sidhu. I think I was just going to talk about it when Councillor Shaheen started talking about the leisure centre and investment. I think, yes, it is. And I'm really confident and really glad to say, yes, that will be ready in April. And that will reduce our costly placements, which we have been doing, and we will be building. It's not just going to be one-off. We're going to build more children's home, and we will be investing in our children's future more. Thank you.
I'm just going to take from Councillor Elmsley, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Palmer. No, okay.
All right, no problem. I'll
Okay.
go.
Thank you. Yep.
Who's
go
going?
for it? Go for it. Go for it.
I'll
go
go
for it,
for it.
Councillor
Okay.
Elmsley.
3 super quick ones. One specific, one big picture, and one structural. Specific first, just on the HRA, page 18 of Appendix 2 notes a staffing impact to the cuts to the HRA budget. I just wonder if Councillor Sampson could tell us whether this will impact any frontline housing services.
Yes, it will.
Could you elaborate on what they might be?
Not at this moment in time, no.
Okay, fine. Big picture, we identified £12 million of savings last year in the last session of this OSC. I understand some of those didn't go forward. Do we know how much of those savings were realised and how much weren't able to be put into action?
So I don't have the exact figure. We can probably get that, but actually, in many respects, it's irrelevant, and I don't mean that in a rude way. It's irrelevant in the sense that anything that we found couldn't be delivered. I think it was an answer to a question earlier. Anything that we found we couldn't deliver, or there was a problem, was swapped out. So that is reflected in the gap that we had to fill in this year. So that's what we're realising, and that's why delivery is so important.
Makes sense. And then Councillor Dunn talked about the importance of the private sector earlier. So we're going to role reverse, and I'm going to talk about trade unions. So we're going to swap colour cloaks. I got one laugh, so that was my joke. At least landed with one person. We, or some of us, received an email from Unison earlier. They raised concerns about engagement with staff during this process. I just wondered if someone could talk to us about how staff were engaged during this budget setting process, and why we think there are concerns being raised with councillors about the way that staff were engaged.
So if I start on the general and then I'll hand over to Mandy. So we don't do budgets onto staff. We talk to staff very early on and throughout the process. And that's an absolute principle that I live to and we all live to as a cabinet. And that's early on from, here's the issue, here's the gap. And I know that both Mandy and Jake have regular sessions with staff, and I think 200 to 300 staff attend each session. 500. 500, wow. Okay, 500 staff attend and they're quite engaged, and it's about having that conversation around, this is the pressure, this is what we're thinking to address it, where are your suggestions in all of that. Now, in service changes, it's inevitable that trade unions may well have an opinion on that, and that engagement with trade union also happens separately. And again, I insist on that as well, and the trade unions can always come and talk to me if they have specific issues around the engagement. They haven't. I've not seen the email that you've seen, unfortunately. I don't know where that's gone, but do you want to talk more specifically around that engagement piece?
Sure. So you'll see that the vast majority of proposals here do not have staffing impacts. And one of our design principles with Jake's team and all the directors that have been involved in these proposals has been to avoid impacts on staff, and obviously to reduce as much as possible the sort of impact on individuals. Some posts, we do have vacant posts, so where we can, we'll be approaching the structural change through that. We have had a number of sessions with different cohorts of staff through our leadership group. Jake and I did run an all-staff session last week, and sort of pointing at the papers that you've been considering tonight, we will be doing more of that. And those teams that are impacted will have bespoke sessions as well. So obviously these aren't decisions that are made yet, they are proposals, so we'll be working through our staff engagement with it, and indeed we had a session with the unions this afternoon as well.
I think we'll leave it. Yeah. So Councillor Farmhan, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Councillor Samia Chaudhary. What is the current progress on the in-house delivery of the new purpose-built residential home on Bedfront Lane? Could you confirm the saving is realistic? Do you have any more plan to build more houses, residential house?
Thank you, Councillor Farmahan. I think just literally just before the question, I've answered it to Councillor Sidhu. Yes, it is. Saving is realistic, and we are really confident that it will be delivered on time, which is April, and it will reduce the costly placement. And yes, we will. It's not going to be the first one. We will be building more children homes, and on the same time, I would like to carry on investing on our young people, and we will carry on working on that. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. All committee members, huge, lots of questions, lots of opportunity to ask. We're going to go to discussion. I want us to just reflect on what we've just heard from your entire cabinet. Some really great things, really great positive things going forward, looking at sort of the savings and certainly looking at sort of the budgets for the next 3 years. So just give yourself a moment if you do want to sort of discuss and talk about something else, not necessarily linked to the questioning, because I think we've exhausted it. But if there is something else that committee members want to ask your team, it's all there. You got the CLT, you got the cabinet members. Anything? Any discussions? Councillor, he's there. Yeah, go for it.
We can have a discussion if you want, Chair. I've exhausted my questioning. Don't worry, you're safe. To For now, yeah. There's a budget meeting coming up. A couple of things, I guess, that came out of this. To echo Councillor Thompson in the Chiswick Area Forum, this was a very difficult budget setting process. And I think that there are some, obviously, it's good that we've got 20 million quid extra. I think also some of the savings proposals are sensible. Renting out space in Hounslow House, we didn't speak about it in the questioning, but that's a sensible proposal. Reducing the subsidy of Lambton. So some of us have been suggesting that for a while. I'm glad to see it come forward in this paper, and also a reduction in corporate comms as well. So there are some sensible. What? Well, anyway, it's in there, but if I'm wrong, anyway, all right. We'll continue. So I think there are some sensible things there. I think also, and I made this point in the last meeting we had last year, it's quite tricky to scrutinise proposals when we don't know what the impact of those proposals will be. So, Councillor Sampson, you're in a difficult position. There's savings that the HRA has to make, but we don't know what impact that will have on frontline housing services. So I don't really know how we can scrutinise those proposals. We've also heard we don't.
Chair, can I interject?
Yeah.
There will be no, let me make this very clear, there will be no impact to services, frontline services within this council. Okay, we are operating in the best interest of residents and the functions of this council.
Well, I asked, and you said there would be, but that's fine.
You asked about staffing.
Yeah.
Yes, there will be a reduction,
So the
but that
reduction
doesn't mean
frontline
to say there will be a decrease in service.
So there'll be a reduction in frontline staff in housing, reduction in frontline staff in domestic violence team as well. But we don't know how much. We don't know what that impact is. And so I think it's very difficult for us to scrutinise as a panel if we don't know beyond the top line figure what it actually means. And I've made that point in previous years. Maybe going forward, we shift this session, or we make sure there's a little bit more information that we can look at.
So I'm pretty sure there will be information coming through. I think there's going to be tracking information coming through as well. So, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of this will come back to OSC at some form as well. So there's always updates that we will see what the effect of those proposed savings, which are already there, will how it affects. Yeah, it may not affect.
Or it may, but I guess my point is we're here to look at those proposals.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying it may affect, it may not affect as well. It might actually be quite good. Yeah. So, but let's park it from there. Is there anything else? Yep. Sorry. Yep. Councillor.
So I think just to draw in together some of the responses that you've had, Councillor Ramsey, whilst I appreciate the appetite to look at what staffing changes mean, I take impact very differently to you. You're some, I think, and I may be putting words into your mouth, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but your assumption would be reduction in staffing means that there is a massive impact. The world's moved on, and I think what we've demonstrated over the last 14 years is that despite staffing changes, and there have been staff cuts in the past, what we've been laser focused on is outcomes for our residents. And so, Councillor Sampson's absolutely right when she says there will be no impact to residents, because we're absolutely focused on the outcomes. So I think, if I'm trying to be helpful here in terms of, whilst absolutely you'll want to see number of staff that perhaps potentially exit the organisation, or what a restructure looks like, I might suggest to you that actually you want to be questioning us on what those outcomes actually look like for residents. So, whilst at a top line you could be talking about a change in domestic violence and those services, actually what is the impact? What is the outcome for residents? We won't do anything that will impact on residents and those who are accessing those services. Same in housing. So I think it's just changing the question. I'm just perhaps gently suggesting to the committee that that is what you may want to look at, and that's up to you, but that's just a suggestion.
No, thank you for that. Okay, is there any other sort of discussions? If not, I do actually have a couple of recommendations, feel free for committee members to add. With regards to the recommendations, so we welcome, of course, the 3-year settlement and the ongoing and timely engagement from the Cabinet locally. We recommend Cabinet continue to engage with Scrutiny to ensure robust regular review. So still continuing with all that. Cabinet continues to focus on operational efficiencies and new place shaping work where the council makes use of other resources across the Hounslow system. So pretty good. Pretty good recommendations there. You know, fantastic budget, good recommendations. Is there anything else that committee members want to add to the recommendation? Are we happy with the recommendations? I do want to second it. And just a vote for the recommendation. Yep, thank you so much. That is all passed. So firstly, yeah, look, so it's a good budget. Thank you so much for everybody that's been here, the leadership, the CLT team, and cabinet members as well. You're more than welcome to stay if you wish to finishing off the last few agenda items, but more than welcome to leave as well. But thank you all. Brilliant. So we're just waiting for councillors just going. Yep. Okay. Here we are. All right. Wonderful. So, okay. So we are sort of moving on to agenda item number 5 now. So this is updates from scrutiny panels, Northwest London Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Panel Committee. Members of the committee will know we have the 3 scrutiny panels working across the municipal year. Each panel undertakes a deep dive in particular topics where we are approaching the sharp end of their work. Panels have now met 3 times this municipal year, have plans for engagement this month and next, and will soon be developing their recommendations. Councillor Sidhu, would you like to give us an update on children's and young people's scrutiny panel, please?
Yeah, it's only a small update. The children and young people scrutiny panel have met 3 times: June, September, and most recently in November. Our last meeting, we received an update from Jennifer Hopper, the Assistant Director of Operation Children Safeguarding, and how the Family First programme is progressing. We currently are coordinating a range of site visits and engagements with faith groups, food banks and community centres. Our next and final meeting will take place on Wednesday the 4th of March, where we will discuss our findings and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor Farmahan, would you like to say something about the work of the Health and Adult Care Panel, please?
Thank you, Chair. This municipal year, the Health and Adult Care Scrutiny Panel has held 3 meetings. As a reminder to the committee, the panel deep dive is focused on the ongoing pressure within adult social care, with particular emphasis on the development of the new integrated model of care in Hounslow. This model seeks to better align health and social care services and build on the last year work, which examined commissioning, contract management. Work undertaken to date across its meeting, the panel has agreed and refined its term of reference. Heard from patient and public representative to understand lived experience and expectations. Held 2 detailed evidence session with Ben Collin, Program Director for Integrated Care. At the most recent session, Ben provided earlier insights emerging from the 2 pilot sites now in operation. Initial finding appears promising with indication of a site shift in how residents are supported under the new model. Members have expressed a strong interest in seeing the pilot site in practice. As a result, a site visit is being planned for the week beginning 9th February, which will allow councillors to engage directly with frontline team and gather further evidence. Current areas of focus. The panel work to continue to center on the following themes. Number one, residents' experience, understanding how files residents are experiencing change in service delivery and how best to ensure their view are captured and acted upon. Number two, impact on outcomes, reviewing the early qualitative and quantitative evidence from the pilot site with further insight expected during the February site visit. Number three, workforce and capacity, considering how the new model affects staff, including workload, satisfaction, and support for adopting new way of working. Number four, partnership working, exploring how the BCSC sector is involved and how collaboration can be strengthened across the system. Number five, scalability and sustainability, assessing what conditions are needed for the new model to be expanded more widely and how the panel can support this development. Next step, the panel will continue to engage with a broad range of stakeholders ahead of the final meeting of the municipal year that will take place on 2nd of March. At this meeting, the panel aimed to provide constructive evidence-based recommendation to support the delivery of sustainable improvement through integration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And if I can have Councillor Mosley on the Housing Environment Scrutiny panel, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just to remind everyone, I am a new chair, so I'll give an update based on the work of the committee, but obviously I'm just doing so from a new capacity. As people will know, this municipal year, the Housing and Environment Scrutiny Panel has been covering the topic of land ownership, with a particular focus on the challenges caused by unclear responsibility of land. We've so far heard from Lorraine Nash, Head of Regulatory Services, and Vinesh Govind, Head of Performance and Information. Both have shared valuable insights around the challenges associated with land ownership. So far, we have explored the concept of a cost-benefit analysis of purchasing disputed land so that we can better explore enforcement and resolution of problems. So in addition to that, we will be doing looking at the topic of a spatial understanding of land ownership, including we've been looking at a map of land ownership, which provides access to comprehensive data within the borough. Like I mentioned, looking at unadopted private land and a cost-benefit analysis of land registry service searches rather. So that's what we'll be doing in our meeting on the 26th of February.
Thank you, Councillor, for that. And if I could have Councillor Sharma, who represents North West London Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, can you provide us with the update with the recent work there, please?
Thank you, Chair. So JOSC was hosted at Hounslow House on the 9th of December 2025, and it was well attended and many important issues were discussed. Councillor Bath welcomed the attendees on behalf of the council. Our key issues that were discussed was the urgent and emergency care, the UEC. So NHS partners reported progress in stabilising urgent and emergency care across North West London, including improved ambulance handovers, expanded same-day emergency care and stronger community-based alternatives to hospital admission. The relevance to Hounslow was that Hounslow residents primarily access urgent and emergency care through West Middlesex University Hospital, making system flow, ambulance handover times and discharge processes particularly important locally. Improvements in ambulance handover performance and early clinical triage are likely to have a positive impact on pressures experienced at Westmid, especially during winter months. Strength of community and mental health alternatives to hospital admission align closely with Hounslow Council's priorities around prevention, reducing avoidable admissions and supporting residents closer to home. Ongoing risks around workforce capacity and rising demand remain relevant for Hounslow given population growth, deprivation in parts of the borough and increasingly complexity of need. We also discussed same-day access in primary care, and the committee reviewed process in implementing the same-day access model in primary care, designed to ensure patients receive timely responses to requests for care and are directed to the most appropriate professional or service. And the relevance to Hounslow is improved access to primary care is key issue for Hounslow residents, particularly in areas with high demand and GP workforce pressures. The model supports better use of multidisciplinary teams, including pharmacists and other clinicians, which may help reduce reliance on A&E at Westmead. Clear communication to residents about how to access care, including 111 and digital triage, is especially important in Hounslow given its diverse population and varying levels of digital confidence. Variability in implementation across boroughs was noted, highlighting the importance of monitoring local delivery and patient experience within Hounslow. We also discussed continuing healthcare, CHC. Members discussed the application of continuing healthcare criteria across North West London with a focus on consistency, timeliness and experience of patients and families. The relevance to us in Hounslow was the CHC assessments and decisions have a direct impact on Hounslow Council's adult social care services, particularly where eligibility thresholds are disputed or decisions are delayed. Delays or inconsistency in CHC can lead to increased pressure on council-funded care packages and hospital discharge processes. Effective joint working between the NHS and Hounslow Council is essential to ensure smooth transitions for residents with complex needs and to minimise distress for families navigating the system. Scrutiny of CHC processes remains important to ensure fairness, transparency and value for money for public services. And we also discussed SEN Continent Service. The committee considered the SEN Continent Service, including service access, eligibility, waiting times, and the experience of children, young people, and their families. And the relevance here in Hounslow was that the SEN Continent Service directly affects children and young people with SEND in Hounslow, as well as their parents and their carers. Concerns about variability in access and clarity of pathways are particularly relevant given increases SEND pressures faced by the council. Any gaps or delays in NHS provision can place additional strain on families and on council SEND and educational services. Clear communication, well-defined referral pathways and close alignment with Hounslow's SEND strategy are critical to improving outcomes and experiences locally. So our conclusions and our next steps was that the JOS meeting highlighted positive progress across the North West London health system, alongside ongoing challenges linked to demand, workforce and service integration. And for Hounslow, the discussions reinforced the importance of strong joint work between the council and NHS partners, particularly around urgent care, primary care access, adult social care interfaces and SEND services. And as we saw earlier on in Agenda 1 with the NHS, and we spoke to our partners within the NHS with David Williams, it's important to note that there is still little clarity who might be in charge of the new ICB that is due to start working with the merger of North West and Central London, and that is something that remains of the utmost concern. So I do look forward to the update that our colleagues will be giving to us.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Councillor Sharma. Of course, anything that the committee members want to talk to the chairs of various committees, I'm sure you can reach out to them. We move on now then to agenda item number 6. So thank you all that. So the forward plan is set. Forgive me. The forward plan. Moving on, the forward plan sets out information about decisions the council intends to make over the coming weeks. The committee can now review the council's forward plan and consider there are decisions it would like to bring in future meetings of OSC. Having reviewed the forward plan, are there any topics I would like to consider? If there are, I'll ask officers to investigate on how these might be brought back into the committee. Is there anything on the forward plan from anyone? Nope. Okay, we then move on then to agenda item number 7, the work programme. And now we turn to the work programme. Members will recall that the committee developed a work programme at the beginning of the small year. It is a good practice to keep the document under review. Members have before them the current work programme detailing changes since we met in June to scope the draft. Are there any issues the committee thinks we should consider? We must remember though, March is our final meeting of this municipal year. If we add new items, will be considered what we might need to remove as well. No, happy with the forward plan. Good, okay. Well, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is just urgent business. There's no urgent business from myself. I think there's, yeah. And then agenda item number 9, which is the date of the next meeting, which is 26th of March 26. And with that, I close the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Thank you all to my guests. Thank you everybody who is watching online as well. And meet you all on the 26th of March. Thank you all. Thanks. Bye-bye.